Congratulations on the series. Were you a fan of the original French series? And if so, what did you want to take away from the essence of that, but put your own stamp on it in this version?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a good question because we watched, Alicia and I watched the original series, I think, in 2018, 2019. I could only get the first 2 seasons. For some reason, we couldn't manage to get it on whatever apps we were trying to get it on. But the first 2 seasons, I was super intrigued. And actually, one of the rare times where I was watching something where I thought, oh, I wonder how I would take that on. And I wonder, I'd like to have a go at that character. So yeah, I was a big fan of it, and then it was sort of like having seen it, and what I loved about what Matthew did with the character is, you know, these sort of people shouldn't stand out too much in life, you know. It should be a little bit like a wallpaper, this character, but there's also something very intriguing about them. So that was something I think Matthew did really well. There was a sort of element to that character where you would underestimate him. You wouldn't see him as a threat. So I thought that was an interesting element and an element to sort of hold on to. But then I don't really know, I don't really intellectualize so much about what's going on. I just spend a lot of time with the script, repeat it many, many, many times, and then it just starts to, you know, seep into the skin and the bones. It takes over itself, really.
Michael, Saura from The Upcoming, such a pleasure to have you here with us. I was hearing you in another interview say that your way of sort of finding the core of this character is actually seeing him as a sociopath. So can you talk about how you played him and how also him falling in love actually forms the anchor of a lot of the character in the show?
Yeah, I think, you know, the thing is I was talking to somebody who works within the industry, and we were talking about the character, and he was like, well, I said, is he a sociopath? And he was like, well, I think he pretty much is. And then he sent me a checklist of, you know, what would define a sociopath. And, you know, Martian, you know, ticked a lot of the boxes. So, of course, then you think to yourself, oh, it was kind of obvious. It's sort of like a sociopath in crisis. You know, he's trying to find, you know, rediscover the humanity within himself, trying to save his soul. And then I started to, you know, really realize that it was those 2 characters, Samia, his love interest. He spent 6 years in Ethiopia. He's created a life with her. And then his daughter, who he hasn't seen for most of her young adult life. Those 2 women in his life, I feel like they're sort of, you know, fighting for his soul. That's the way I kind of looked at it.
Did you, and could you relate to your character in this?
I couldn't really relate. I mean, I tried to understand. I just spent a lot of time reading the script, spending a lot of time with the writing, and then, you know, trying to put some sort of, you know, biography together, where the character comes from, why they would get into a profession like this in the first place, and then where they started off fresh-faced in this kind of world, and how, you know, where they're at, where we find this character now, how it's affected their life, and especially with this character because he's so efficient at what he does, how does he deal with real relationships in his life in the real world?
And tell me, you've worked with Richard Gere on this. Is he just as charming in real life?
Very charming man. He's Richard Gere. He's a superstar. And yeah, just, you know, a joy to work with. I mean, the whole cast, I think, you know, we're spoiled for such talent. But it was a real honor and privilege to work with him for sure.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys!
Hey, you guys!
Hey, you guys!
Hey, that's what they all say.
Hey You Guys!
Hey!